I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
Oh, I'm Roniel 1.0 right now. Okay. Should be back to normal pretty soon, but 1.0 right now. Currently traveling, moving around. Uh, anyways, so interesting talk for today is I was kind of thinking about something that kind of happened or I kind of see all the time. And I wanted to know what you thought about it, DaRon. Is it seems like a lot of people kind of start to reach for findings or fluff up the reports and
Right.
fluff things. And I wanted to know what your thought was about that and what people should actually do instead of trying to fluff up reports and reach for findings, how they should actually go about that.
This is actually similar to what we were just talking about, or what we talked about last episode, where what we were really discussing was the large number of people who wind up either fluffing their finding severity levels or putting downward pressure to artificially deflate that severity. In this case, instead, they are either inventing findings that aren't there or don't matter, or they are pushing findings that are old and outdated, or they are putting on a lot of findings that are relatively superfluous. Like a good example, you don't have the HSTS flag set, right? So HSTS, of course, is tied to your TLS certificates. It's kind of a form of certificate pinning for web browsers, mostly what use it. But it has come under fire really almost since it came out, but more and more lately because it can lead to absolutely egregious denial of service. It can lead to horrendous problems if you get compromised and you need to swap out your certificate, or your certificate expires and you weren't paying any attention. So now everyone who's visited your site has to wait until the expiry of that HSTS record, or clear it out manually, which heaven help you if you have to explain to all your users how to do that, and so on and so forth, right? Under Obama, actually, he had signed an executive order stating that all federal governments, all federal websites had to include the HSTS header. And I mean, when he pushed that out, because I had systems where we purposefully weren't doing it, and I looked at it, I laughed, and I said, clearly someone doesn't understand the implications of this and what this is going to do. Since then, a lot of the industry has pushed away from that. And I bring this up because it's tied to things like certificate pinning on mobile applications or root detection. And it's also tied to just ridiculous findings. You'll see people do all kinds of crazy findings. I don't know if you have any good examples off the top of your head, but if, for example, I hit them on, and separately, having insecurely set cookies, so cookies that don't have the secure flag, and then I have a second finding for cookies that don't have HTTP only enabled, and then I have a finding for not preventing clickjacking, and a finding for this, a finding for that. So I'm basically nickel and diming them.
Yeah, I mean, I think reaching is not only just having like cross-site scripting, having so many different cross-site scripting severity ratings or findings, and then also not even just that. How about saying, you have the software with known vulnerabilities, but then you have people that will put in a high for a web application, but that's not patched, and they're kind of fluffing or reaching there when they have that. Like,
right,
you didn't do anything with it.
Right.
So why are you hitting me for high severity because it's not patched, and it got a version number on there, but you didn't do anything with it, which is why I should go into the software with known vulnerabilities. Now, if you were able to do something with that, that might turn that into a high severity or whatever the CVE may have been that you were actually. This is normally probably a CVE, but whatever you were able to do with it, then maybe that'll be different. But that's when people start reaching for findings. Like, it doesn't make sense. And again, when you first start off as a junior or a security consultant, you kind of like You might do this a lot of times, but as you get more mature into your career, you start to see how stupid that is. And then especially when clients start to complain about, why are you hitting me for these multiple things when it's the same thing?
Right. Right. I think a good example would be, so you hit me for cross-site scripting here, then you hit me for using a library that has cross-site scripting vulnerabilities, and you hit me for both using that library and then a separate finding for cross-site scripting tied to it, and then you hit me for some other cross-site scripting vulnerability. And what you're doing is, maybe this one's a high, this one's a medium, and then you have another one that's a medium, but it has a different score for whatever reason. And you're just slamming them over and over and over again so that you have 30 findings on your report. When the truth is, what you should have done was grouped all of the like findings together. So all of the cross-site scripting stuff should have all been together. If you had software with known vulnerabilities, like you said, you have a finding for that. If there's cross-site scripting tied to that and you manage to successfully pull it off, then it should go in your existing cross-site scripting vulnerability. Yep. It shouldn't be separate just because you need 30 findings. And we talked before about having a report with too many findings and how that plays out.
Yeah, it's not well. It's not really good. And the client, all they do it and don't complain, they're just going to scrap their application altogether.
Yes.
Because it's too much. If you've ever been a developer, you know that's too much to try to clean, especially or get done and patch or whatever when you have a deadline or you're trying to put out another product or put out the product by this particular deadline. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And then not only with the SLAs that you have, and when you have to have things done in a 30-day or 90-day period, you're not going to be able to get that done because that that's going to be a big issue. So you don't want to overwhelm the client, and you don't want them to just scrap the project. You actually want to give them enough that they can deal with, and quality at that,
right,
than to give them 30 of redundant findings that is bullshit. It like I said, back in when I used to think about it when I was first starting, it was all about how many findings I could find. That makes me look really good. But now when I think about it, it's pretty dumb. And it doesn't make sense. And all it tells me is that I'm fluffing up my goddamn report. No matter how great I am, it's fluff. And if you think that giving a client 30 findings makes you look great, you are a fucking idiot because it's fluff. And eventually they're going to call your bluff.
Yes, it makes you look like you didn't actually have much, so you had to keep hitting them over and over again on the same thing. It also makes you seem petty.
Yep. And I mean, if you don't know any better, that's fine, because they tell you need to be hitting them on this, and that. And that's not true.
Yeah.
And you're not going to always find everything on an assessment. So the best thing to do is, whatever your methodology is, the best thing to do is nothing past, I don't know what you think, but I say nothing past 15 or 13. I think it's a good start. And, you can always save some more for the tank later on, because you only get 1 week to test. And, what I'm saying, it doesn't make sense to fluff your report or reach for it, because like I said, eventually you're going to get a client who's going to be combative and is going to argue you down on these vulnerabilities. And it's just best to consolidate them. Like, for instance, it's one client, one time I had there were probably 10 cross-site scripting, and they all were different: persistent, dime cross-site scripting, reflective. And some of them may have been a medium severity, but with all of the different ones I found, it made sense to tie them together, which made the severity higher anyway, because it was persisting all around. There was consistency, like where it was, expanding across applications. So, it didn't make sense to give them so many different lists or separate findings when I could have just grouped it into one, and it'll make more sense for them. And it doesn't seem like I'm reaching for findings when I don't really need to. I had enough there anyway. I had enough for them to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely considerably more palatable that way. It seems less like you're trying to attack them and more like you're trying to help. And the other thing is, when you have a cross-site scripting vulnerability that you have marked as 6.7, and then you have another one that's 6.5, and another one that's 5.8, and one that's 7.1, they're going to start asking questions, and you're going to have to start justifying it. Can you? Yes. Is that a waste of everyone's time? Yes. If instead you group them all, especially if it is systemic, like what you're describing, you're going to make everyone's life so much easier.
Yeah. And it also shows the maturity in your work and in your mindset as well. Because like I said, I've been there where that, it was about how many highs, how many, findings I can get. And then it became to a point where it wasn't about that because I've seen how clients would get if you give them, if it's just ridiculous. But if you had like 10 highs and 10 mediums and all these tons of lows, I've seen people have like almost 15 lows. How does that look?
Yeah.
That doesn't look good. The client is going to feel like you're shitting on them instead of actually helping them. And like I said, they're not going to be able to fix all of that in time.
Yeah.
I mean, you have some clients that want you to give them everything in the kitchen sink. This is kind of the problem and the issue with consulting is you never are going to have consistency among clients. They're always going to be inconsistent. See, when you're dealing with clients, they're going to want certain things. They're going to want you to do this. So you have to be, versatile.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with different people or different clients and know what your client wants. Which is why you should know that when you're actually having the kick or before the kickoff, having a conversation with the client to figure out what they really want, even in the scoping, which people don't do scoping right nowadays. Gosh, Leash, please get your scoping together.
They're worried about the money.
Yeah. It's all about sales nowadays. It's more about quantity over quality.
Right.
Like, it's not a lot of quality there. It's a lot more quantity. Let's see how many reports we can pump out, which kills your employee, your consultant. Like, we're not technical writers.
Right.
And that's what technical writers are good at. That's what they get paid to do. So, stop thinking that your penetration tester or your consultant, security consultant, whoever the fuck you are supposed to be good technical writers. That's not what we are.
Right. That's true. We're not. We aren't. You may be good at writing. You might actually be someone who's particularly good at technical writing, but you're going to burn out your penetration testers pushing them to do that because that's not what they signed up for.
No. I mean, you got to think about it. People don't know what consulting things work. I mean, if you're almost 80%, 90% utilized, there's no way you have enough time to do a report because you're back to back consistently. So how can you write a quality report if you're always continuously back to back on assessments? It's not possible. I mean, you would literally have to have near to none find to actually write a which is not a great thing all the time, especially if the client's paying you top dollar to find vulnerabilities.
Right.
But it doesn't make sense, and like I said, you guys stop fluffing your reports. Okay, stop reaching. It does not make you look good. It's not going to get you the great promotion. And if it does give you the great promotion, eventually somebody's going to call you out for it. Okay. And then it's going to make you look bad, the company look bad, and they're going to want to take their talent somewhere else or their money somewhere else, whatever. But you don't have to reach.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. We don't need a bunch of petty findings.
Just another tips and tricks and tools from the trade that you guys should look out for if you're just starting. You know what I'm saying? Try not to reach. There's nothing wrong with having, maybe 9 or 10, 11 findings is pretty good.
Yeah.
And if you can find some stuff, it's better than what most people can. Most people can't find a damn thing. But to try to fluff your report because you think that you don't have a lot of stuff or people are going to look at you differently, they're going to look at you differently regardless of how many findings you have or not. Just try working on your skills. Stop reaching. Stop fluffing. Anyway, I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
And if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more. This one. Until the next time,
have fun.